Hey, it has been a while. I am behind on the videos. It's been crazy just to kind of catch you up. Those who know what my family and I are doing, we're venturing out, raising support for a church plant in Plainfield, Indiana. And so we've been on the road. We've been in Arkansas. We're currently in Texas. We've just been all over the place. And I guess I'm trying to make excuses. But either way, I want to get back to this. It's been too long. So I want to share with you something that just recently hit me that I was reminded of. And a lot of this stems from the hurt and the pain and things that some friends of ours are going through, family, even just some old acquaintances or friends from years ago that maybe we've lost touch outside of social media. But because of things that we're seeing on social media, we're reminded of the frailty of life and the pain and the suffering that we go through as people. And so I really I wanted to kind of share some thoughts on how we deal with life, how we deal with grief, how we approach God in those moments. We want to approach Him in a very human way because we are human, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I do think that we can take it too far a lot of times, but ultimately God is God, and He's big enough to handle it. He wants our worship. He wants us to glorify Him. He wants a relationship with us. But just like in any relationship, we sometimes struggle. And so I wanted to share this psalm with you from David. It's Psalm 142, and I've already posted a song that really goes along with it by Rend Collective that you should definitely check out. And so, if you're listening to this, go and you're friends with me on Facebook or something, you can go look it up on my Facebook page, or the song is Weep With Me by Rend Collective, so you could look it up that way as well. And I may put a link to their video in the description. But Psalm 142 says this, it's David, and he says, "With my voice I cry out to the Lord, I plead for mercy to the Lord, I pour out my complaints." We already see in the first couple of verses, David's complaining to God. He admits it. And a lot of times we want to tell people to get over it, or, don't complain. God is God. You're not. Don't question God. This is scripture that shows the very opposite. Now we have to come out of it, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. We have to come away from it. We can initially make our complaint known to God. We can initially cry out to Him and plead with Him and let Him know that we're in pain or that we're suffering or whatever it may be. But it's okay to initially have that response. We just have to have a follow-up, so to speak. But again, we'll get to that in just a minute. In verse 3, he says, "His spirit faints within him, and that God knows his path." He says, "I look to the right, and there's no one there. There's no refuge for me. Nobody cares for me. I cry out to God, and I say, 'You're my refuge, and you're my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry.'" And yet he still feels so defeated. As we read through this, we don't necessarily see a response from God, but we do see a transition from David in his complaining to his recognition of who God is. He says, "Attend to my cry and deliver me from my persecutors." And then he responds in this thought of hope, in this moment of expectation. He cries out and he says, "God, relieve me or bring me out, of rescue me from this prison so that I can give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, and you will deal bountifully with me. You will show grace to me. You will give immensely and abundantly to me." And we see that shift, and it happens almost so abrasively, so quickly that there's no real transition. He feels alone. He feels completely abandoned in one moment, and then in the next, he relies on God. And he's expectant of God. And he recognizes who God is and God's position compared to his own. And so he says, "God, deliver me so that I can give you thanks, so that I can come out of this misery, and so that I can be in an emotion and in a state of mind that is filled with joy and that is filled with love and that is filled with praise to you, God. I want to thank you for what I expect you to do. And there's no guarantee for David here. If you compare this to what David was going through and you really line it up chronologically with what was going on in his life at the time, David had been exiled by Saul, and Saul was after him. He was on the run because Saul wanted to kill him. And he's hiding away in a cave. And whether this was moments, hours, or even a day or so later, we read in that portion of Scripture, I believe it's in 1 Samuel, we read that the bandits, the vagabonds, the detestables of Israel, the mighty men of valor is what they're called later, they come to David and they encourage him and they make him their commander and their leader. And even Jonathan comes to visit David and his family. They come to see him and they encourage him. And this righteous will surround me. These are the righteous that end up surrounding David in his time of need, and as he's depressed and as he's in misery and as he's in pain and suffering and everything that's following him right now, it does end up turning around. And it doesn't always in our life. Sometimes we just live with the pain, but we have a God who lives with the pain with us and for us, who carried the pain with us, who promises us eternity as a remedy to that pain. So whatever it is that you're going through, I know I did one very similar to this a few months back, but I just want you to know, because there seems to be so much of it surrounding friends of ours and people that we know, whatever you're going through, God is there hearing your cry. God weeps with and for you. God has plans of prosperity for you. He has plans of eternity if you'll simply have a relationship with him and know him. He has plans of good for you. And he loves you very deeply. It's my belief that he hurts when we hurt. But in that same thought, he rejoices when we rejoice. So even in the midst of your pain, know that you have a God that is worthy of your praise. And find a reason to worship him. Find reason to give him honor and glory today. Thanks. Sorry for the lengthy absence, but hopefully this gets us back to it. We will see you soon.